Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp. We have episode 2 here of our buy and avoid sales list. There are some incredible sales, and it was quite difficult to actually find 5 games that you should avoid. But it was very easy to find 5 that you should buy.
Yeah, nice one. Just before we start mentioning games, I do want to say that a lot of these are on the EU store, some of them on the American one, but if you are non-EU, this is probably as good a time as any, if you haven't done so already, to get yourself an account for those stores. Just want to name a few obvious ones before we start. If there's anyone with a Switch that still hasn't bought Mario Odyssey, Legends of Zelda or Xenoblade Chronicles 2, these are all on sale for approximately 30 to 33% off. They're no-brainers. If you don't own them, get them.
Awesome stuff. Also, there's Monster Hunter. That is a game that I haven't seen on sale at all. I think it's 44% off, something like that. Definitely worth picking up.
Okay then, my first pick for games that you should pick up during this sale, it's Siberia 1 and 2 as a double pack. Now these games have been out for a long time, and when they released on the Switch they were massively, and I do mean massively, overpriced. So to get the first 2 games thrown in together for 60% off, which equates to about £11, $14, is much closer to where it should have been originally, to be fair. Now obviously these games are quite old. I did play the first one through around Christmas time with my wife, and although it is a little clunky these days, they're still very enjoyable games.
My first game I recommend you perhaps avoid in the sale is Sonic Forces, which is currently 33% off. I believe this is in the US eShop sale. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a terrible game, but I was expecting a Sonic Adventure remake or something along those lines, and it was quite worrying how little gameplay we were shown before launch. When it released, the whole thing felt so very on rails. I know it's Sonic, but if you look at the spiritual successor that's essentially Sonic 4, Sonic Mania, they did such a good job with their level design. So when I dropped onto Sonic Forces and felt like I was stuck on rails for the entire experience, it just didn't click with me at all.
Good stuff. Right, the next one that I would recommend would be Octopath Traveler. Now when I do my section of the games that I believe you should pick up, I always try to factor in the faults of a physical collector. What I mean by that is, are the sale prices decent compared to what it goes for physically? Now Octopath Traveler is one of those games that still hasn't really dropped in price since its release. Still goes over here in the UK for about £40, £45. So at 33% off, this is definitely good value. The game itself is a classic RPG with absolutely delightful visuals, and although it was recently announced that it's no longer a Switch exclusive and it's going to the PC, the Switch is still a great place to play it, bearing in mind the portability.
Alright, so the next game that I would recommend you avoid like the plague is a game called Pirates. Now, as soon as I saw the name Pirates, I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to be like Sid Meier's Pirates, which was a fantastic series. And from these eShop visuals, you know, I thought maybe it is. Maybe this is what this is all about. It really isn't. It really isn't. In fact, it's kind of a game split into 2 sections. You've got this section where you steer your ship through a never-ending mobile-like experience, and then you have the player versus CPU sea battles, which they're just not fun at all.
Imagine if we got Sid Meier's Pirates on the Switch.
Yes, please.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Alright, so the next game is Moonlighter. Now, if you haven't checked out our review of that one, I'll pop a link down in the description. Moonlighter is a simulator where you have a shop of your own, but also you can go dungeon crawling. You start off with only one dungeon unlockable, and the items you get there obviously don't sell for a great price, but there's a real balancing act between do you sell them at a little bit higher and try and get those clientele, or do you sell them at bargain basement prices and get many more sales. It's a very addictive gameplay loop, but the thing that really got me with Moonlighter was the musical score. It's absolutely lovely.
As a kid, there were dreams of adventures, monsters, and mysteries to be solved. But as a family of shopkeepers...
Okay, next one that you should probably avoid then is Danger Mouse. Now this one is 20% off. It was a fairly cheap game to start with, but don't let that fool you. Anyone that grew up in the 80s, sees the name Danger Mouse, has that pang of nostalgia and fancies picking it up. Honestly, don't bother. It plays like a PlayStation 1 game. It's a racing game. The controls are absolutely abysmal. It's like trying to turn a double-decker bus trying to turn your character. Even at 20% off, £3 odd, $4, whatever it is, just stay away from it. Watch Danger Mouse on TV instead.
Yeah, that is no joke. Somewhere in the world, Glenn, there is a PlayStation and it is weeping at that comparison. The next game that we recommend that you pick up is probably my favourite game of all time, and that's Dark Souls. Now, although the audio was slightly downsampled for the Nintendo Switch version, I personally didn't find it a huge issue. What I really loved was just having that experience on the go. Everything else about it worked brilliantly on the Nintendo Switch. It was nice to have Glen try the game for the first ever time on Switch, and to be fair to him, he smashed it. It's 30% off and about £24 on the UK Eshop.
Okay, the next one that I would suggest you avoid is Asterix and Obelix, which is currently standing at 40% off. Now I'm going to be honest, this is not as bad as some of the games that we've highlighted recently, but what I would say in terms of the mechanics is just they are incredibly dated. The game is a 3D platformer, but a lot of the mechanics just feel very clunky these days. Everything just feels very slow. There are just so many other better 3D platformers already on the Switch that even at 40% off, it's still not really any sort of deal.
Yeah, having played quite a lot of that one for review, Glen's completely right. Very frustrating mechanics throughout. Right then, so our final two games, we're going to lump these two together, are Wolfenstein and Doom, and they're 33% and 50% off respectively. Now, I actually completed Wolfenstein on the PC, and it was a brilliant game, and one that I never expected to come to handheld. It's your token first-person shooter, but there are actually some really nice story segments in there, and it was the journey of BJ Blazkowicz is what really made that one for me. Doom, on the other hand, was the first real panic button port we had on the Switch. And while it started out slightly blurrier, they've refined it over and over again, and is now a very enjoyable experience. It obviously has the online multiplayer as well, and really for that alone it would be worthwhile, but the story they put into this iteration and the delivery was the perfect way to reboot this much loved franchise.
Yeah, much the same as Octopath Traveler, both Doom and Wolfenstein have kept their price physically as well, so again, at the current prices, these are well worth it.
Lovely. So I'm going to end with one more game that you should avoid. And we have mentioned it a few times. We don't mean to hate on a game or anything like that, and we know the work that developers put into these, and we respect that. But the game Riot Civil Unrest is one that really catches the eye on the visuals alone on the eShop. And if I were to see it on sale, I know for a fact I'd pick it up. I would strongly suggest you go and watch my review of that one before you do so. There we have it. As usual, this sale is far bigger than we could ever get into our list. I'll put a few more names up on the screen of games like LA Noire, which are also on sale, Just Dance if that's your thing, Glen, and many others. And as always, we just really appreciate all the new subscribers, our Patreons, and for all things Switch all the time, isn't it, Glen?
Yeah, there's a bunch of great indie games on sale at the minute as well, so please do chuck any that we've missed into the comment section below to let others know of games that you've played that you would recommend, or obviously that you would absolutely recommend we stay away from. And until the next one, happy gaming.
See ya!